My philosophy on Barbie was that through the doll, a little girl could be anything. Barbie always represented the fact that a woman has choices. These are the words of Ruth Handler, Barbie's creator, and through this philosophy is how Barbie became such a cultural icon for the past 60 years. Parents, grandparents, and children all know the name Barbie, and Barbie's history has been lost to time and ignorance. Barbie's creator became a mother in 1941 to her daughter Barbara, who would become the inspiration for Barbie, and Ruth would watch her daughter playing with these boring paper dolls and wondered if there could be more. But Ruth had no idea how to make this more a reality. She wanted this three-dimensional figure for her daughter to dress up and not a flat piece of paper. And Ruth was left without inspiration until a trip to Europe in 1950, where Ruth was introduced to the German newspaper cartoon Lily, who was a professional call girl. Lily was seen as this inappropriate piece in German culture, but she was still made into a three-dimensional doll to be given as a gag gift. This doll was seen as inappropriate for kids and girls, and that is why she was discriminated against and not made into this popular thing like what we will have in the future with Barbie. Ruth looked at Lily and thought there was something more than this. As a writer who goes by the alias Messy Nessie said, a sex doll. Ruth took Lily back to America and in 1959 created for the New York Toy Fair the very first Barbie, who is depicted here in her original black and white striped swimsuit. Barbie was a total failure. Men were the only figures in business, and they did not understand what to do with Barbie or how to play with her or how girls would even relate to this girl. And mothers had to agree with them. Mothers thought that Barbie was a creation that displayed something that was damaging and harmful to their daughters because her proportions were so different from regular humans. And Ruth's idea was in jeopardy until a marketing team found that some mothers would purchase Barbie because it influenced their daughters to have more womanly and feminine grooming habits. This was very important back in the 1940s because if a woman did not have a husband, she did not have a future. And if Barbie could encourage a more ladylike personality for their daughters, then the mothers would buy it for their daughters. And Ruth and the company of Mattel took this idea and this marketing research by the reins, coming out with another commercial that depicted Barbie in a wedding dress, reminding mothers of what Barbie was all about. She was all about the future. Girls loved Barbie, they loved her now, and just about every girl in every house now had at least one Barbie. And they wrote to Mattel telling Barbie and telling her mother Ruth that Barbie needed a boyfriend, and thus Ken was born. Ken was named after Ruth Handler's son, Kenneth. And in the 1970s, Ken and Barbie both went through a transition with brand new face changes and better production through the creation of Malibu Barbie, sports Barbies, and glam disco Barbies, and had so many different outfits. With this trend of fashion that Barbie always had, also came the most popular Barbie ever to date, Totally Hair Barbie. Totally Hair Barbie was such an icon that her sales records have still not been beat, and she was so popular with daughters and mothers because Totally Hair Barbie was so free for expression. She had long hair that went all the way down to her feet and came with a crimper, with a comb, and with a little tube of gel so girls could have endless fun styling their Barbie's hair. Ken also came out with a Totally Hair version of himself, which girls could style like the 90s heartthrobs that they were already so infatuated with these little tubes of gel. In the 90s also came the Be Anything project, where Barbie was depicted with any job under the sun. She was imagined as a grocery store worker, something that a girl could consider like her mother. Or she was a doctor, or she was a chef. The Be Anything movement was so popular that girls in America went from having just one Barbie to having 8, and some even having 50. Barbie became so popular, but with popularity also comes discrimination. Barbie was depicted as an image that was harmful to poor girls in the area because her proportions were so different. Here in this picture, you can see that a real person is very different from Barbie, even in doll form. But the reason why Barbie is made so tall with such a long neck and long waist is so that her clothing fits her more properly. Layering up clothing on a doll that had normal proportions, her face and neck would be totally hidden by just a shirt and coat. And Barbie always wanted to come out with different sizes and shapes for their dolls, but never had the opportunity to in 1940, 1970, and so on, until 2010 with a body empowerment movement. With this movement came the fashionistas, a group of dolls that were all different shapes and sizes. There were always black Barbies, at least since the 1970s, but now there were Barbies that were taller, shorter, curvier, and had new skin tones. Barbies were now Asian, they were now Mexican, they were now black, they were now Indian. And while Barbie could have been anything, it was so much more important and empowering that Barbie also looked like the girls that were as Barbie was held in their hands. This was seen as such an important movement, and one of Barbie's best moves since Totally Hair Barbie or the wedding dress. Barbie now gave girls the ability to dream and imagine and to have an even more brighter and realistic hope for the future. This philosophy was so important to Ruth Handler. Ruth Handler really was a visionary, but unfortunately she died in 2002 before she could see this movement take place. Her philosophy is now with the fashionista movement encapsulated for every girl. And her philosophy rings even more true than ever. Women can be anything, and women now have choices.